Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Hello, friends. How are you? I'm so sorry for the delay. Today we had a brief homeschooling computer issue, and he had to be on class. So I had to put my kids' schooling first for a moment. But I'm just now getting us set up here. Just give me one more second to get Facebook Live. Hello, beautiful souls. Yay, Pat and Nikki. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share this live on Facebook and we will be off to the races. How are you all? Hi, Heather. How's everyone doing today? Tell me everything. Oops. Okay. I love you all. Hey, Liz. I'm so happy you're here. Oh my gosh. You all are amazing. Okay. Let me just see how I can share this one live. Watch party. Yeah, that's her. Okay. One of these days, I'm going to get this technology figured out. Daily love on emotions. All right, here we go with family. Elisa, hello. Oh, I'm so happy to be with you all. Yay, we're all here together, feeling the community. I mean, I don't know about you all, but all of this isolation is making me ever more grateful for the profound blessing of our community. And I love seeing the way all of us are coming together. I've been getting so many wonderful messages from you all. I am taking them so deeply into my heart. Thank you so much. And please share with everybody in the group too, because there are some serious insights coming out of these experiences, serious creations coming out of these experiences. And the more you share with others, the more we'll be able to really share in that cross-pollination of ideas and joy and love and wonderfulness. Oh, Ulrike coming from Sweden, Rachel in Colorado. Yes, that's so great. So today we are going to talk about emotions. Question. Yes, Nikki, Daily Love Facebook group. And you're welcome for doing this every day, Liz. Thank you. I want to ask you this question. What emotions are coming up for you in this moment? And please type them in because I'm going to weave them into the experience today. So as we're sitting and having this discussion this morning, please, you can type in whatever emotions are coming up for you. I know this morning I got up and I had a reminder on my phone to pack for Ibiza because my beautiful friends and I from Jericho were going to be in Ibiza together. And I had this wave of sadness come up like, oh my goodness, we're going to have this amazing experience together. And now, we're all in our homes and not together. And then there's so many waves of sadness of canceling events that we've worked a long time for, of not being together with friends. Yeah, I'm seeing here loneliness, sadness, grief. Yeah, so much frustration. Yeah, absolutely. Bonjour, Martine. Yeah, so feel free on Facebook too. And for those of you on my personal Facebook page, you may want to click over to my business one because I can't see your comments unless they're on my business one during this. So yeah, a lot of collective experiences of this deep sadness, this grief of loss, this fear of loss. I know for Santi and for a lot of kids, I was talking with some other moms, for children right now, this real feeling of fear of losing loved ones, for all of us who are losing loved ones, but I think kids really, they take it and internalize it in their hearts in a certain way, this very sweet fear for all of humanity that as Santi was sharing it, I was really feeling it in my own heart. Tenderness, yeah, Pat, me too. Yes, so yeah, it brings up this, it strikes this chord. And the image that comes up is a chord. It's, when you play a note on an instrument or a chord, it's as if this experience comes into the heart and it strikes this chord of now things are different, and it comes in and it filters through the body, and all this different symphony of experiences start happening. We start feeling, we start processing, we start applying thoughts to that, and it all starts getting, intertwined and interwoven. And sometimes it can really start to, to cover or color our vision. And I think in this moment that's happening a lot. You start, when these emotions come up, the big emotions like sadness or grief or loneliness, it really becomes the lens that we look through, as if you're wearing colored glasses. I don't know if Emma's on today, but she gave me these fabulous glasses. And when I look through them, everything is yellow. And so we have this this perspective. You can think of these like our emotions. I really feel actually happier when I put these on. So we have these different emotions that come up, and we start seeing the world through a different lens when emotions arrive. And you can think of emotions really as visitors. Emotions are these experiences that arise. We feel them for a while, and then they start to dissolve. And they really go through a cycle of life. They're born, they grow in intensity, right? We start feeling them, and then they kind of reach their pinnacle where they can almost feel like they're really consuming us almost completely. And then as the emotion tells its story and gets everything expressed that needs to be expressed, it starts melting down into the backdrop, and it starts just going back to the place from which it came. So and then that gets stored in our collective experience of all the emotions we felt before. And that's, of course, what gives us our empathy, our compassion. And it really deepens the heart. Now, something I want to point out about emotions, and I want to ask you all if you've noticed this, and please chime in if you have. Have you noticed that in this experience of stopping and coming into the home, being in quarantine, have you noticed that the volume on emotions has turned up, perhaps? And perhaps in contrast to the way we perceive emotions when we're in the midst of our day-to-day life. So when we're in the midst of our day-to-day life, we're busy, we're moving quickly through experiences. And so the experience of emotions can really be that we're so fused to the emotion, we're so fused to the doing action that the emotion kind of gets ignored. It just gets suppressed. It gets pushed down for another day. So yeah, Liz is saying yes, and I know for sure I have too. I'm noticing like kind of old emotions coming up, new emotions, new shades of old emotions coming up, all these different flavors of how the life experience is rippling out and through. And so when we're not moving around doing 1,000 things, all of a sudden the volume on the emotions is louder. So first of all, I want to acknowledge you might not just be feeling the emotions you're feeling from this moment. You might be feeling the emotions that you haven't, had time to really sit and listen to for a long, long time. And so those emotions may start to build up and up and up and up. And then you've got this mountain under the rug. And when you finally start to peek under the rug, you're like, oh, whoa, okay, wait, could you all please just get in a single file line? I'll see you one at a time, please. And you can do that, by the way. You can tell your emotions that. Yeah, Liz said this is why so many people are texting their exes right now. Yeah, it's bringing up these very old experiences. And so, I really encourage you to give yourself patience and kindness and love in the midst of it. All of these older emotions that are coming up, they've been there for a while and they may take time. So give yourself all the latitude. We're going to do an exercise in a moment to work with them. So notice the old ones, notice the ones that have been there a long time, notice the new ones associated with this experience, and notice how those might be intertwined and interweaving with each other. One of the first things you can do when an emotion comes up is, first of all, just notice it and say, I see you're there. So the second you become aware of an emotion, you're no longer owned by it. When you are not noticing that you're feeling an emotion, and let's work with sadness. Sadness was one that was coming up, and it's one that I'm sitting with today myself. So when we feel kind of like a just day-to-day sadness, it just kind of becomes this dull hum in the background. But right now, so many things are happening at once. We really get this, experience of sadness where it's gripping us. So the more we can untangle that grip and become self-aware, we talked about that for a whole workshop. You can go back and watch it if you want to know more about that. The more we can become self-aware, the less owned we become by the experience. The next piece of it is to always ground it in the body. Notice where in the body you're feeling it. So all those of you who mentioned emotions, type in now, I want you to just close your eyes for a moment. Notice where you feel the emotion in your body. So as I say sadness, I'm feeling it in my heart, and then really up here into my chest, and then up into my throat. It's kind of this old leathery feeling. Anybody else have a physical sensation? When we ground sensations in the body, we really start to tune in to how they're playing out in us. And it's a huge piece of self-awareness where we can learn to become aware of the sensation. So even if you know this, I know that I see John Bossler, I see some of you old IRS people out there. And so even though you might have done this 1,000 times, notice where you're feeling your body. Okay, so Heather says in her shoulders. Anybody else? Hi, John. I love you. Okay, so feel free to keep typing in if you decide you want to share where you're feeling emotions. Upper chest and throat. Okay. So, and then as you start to feel into it, and we're going to do it as an experience today, you can start giving these physical sensations a voice. You can start letting them say, okay, like Liz says, stomach now. So down into the stomach. Now, if I was to describe this, what's the texture? What's the color? What's the flavor? What's the energy of it? If it had, you know, a look, what does it look like? You know, there's so many different ways you can describe it. And when you start to describe it, notice how it may start to change, because emotions are our response to a situation. No situation has an emotion in and of itself. So for instance, some people may have, you know, we might all go through the same experience. Let's say we go through a political election, you know, just for example. So one person wins, the other person loses. Half the people are happy, some percent are sad. So there's both. The same experience created two different emotions and probably millions of emotions in all the different people. So the situation itself doesn't have an emotion. The situation is what it is. Our emotion is our response to the situation. So when we really start to listen to that emotion, we start to see, this is how I'm taking it in. Like I said, it's like how we play the chord of that experience in our body and in our mind. We play the note. And so each experience has, you know, those different chords, those different notes that are playing out. When we ground it in the body, we start to really notice it stops floating out here, because then the brain just takes that and does different things with it. We start to actually make it real. And it starts to actually, you might feel it more when you ground it in the body, but eventually, if you keep sitting with it, we're going to do it today, it'll start to mellow out. Eventually. I've never met one that hasn't eventually mellowed out, right? And if you're in these moments that feel desperate, or like, you know, you can't handle it all, please remember, and you can write this on your wall if you want, you have survived even your worst moment. In this moment, you have survived even your worst moment. So keep that in mind as you move through this. It will give you courage, it will give you strength as you navigate your way through these emotional experiences. Another thing that can really help is to realize, and this is more of an intellectual experience, that our emotions get amplified by having stress and tension present. So just let me geek out with a little bit of science just for 2 minutes and then we'll come back. But when we experience stress, our body's response is to trigger the sympathetic nervous system. That is our body's deeply ingrained stress response. It's what's supposed to happen. It's what keeps us safe. And emotions are there also to help keep us safe. They're in some ways turning up the volume on the experience so that we notice it. And so what happens, thanks Leah, geek away. What happens when we experience an emotion is when we experience stress, all of a sudden the body goes into the sympathetic response. The prefrontal cortex, the higher level, newer part of the brain, it goes offline. It stops working. So if you're trying to do higher level thought, anybody trying to do higher level thought, write that best-selling book you always wanted to write, or, get through all your bills, or whatever it is that you're doing now that you're at home. The higher level thought functions, when you're in sympathetic nervous system response, they don't happen. Your brain doesn't actually think that way. That's oftentimes why after trauma, people have such a hard time going back to work, because actually the prefrontal cortex, if you were to hook yourself up to one of these amazing brain scan machines, you would see that the prefrontal cortex is not lighting up the same way it does in a healthy brain when the sympathetic nervous system is kicking on all cylinders. The other thing that happens, and in a very short amount of time, such a short amount of time that honestly it should kind of scare us. What ends up happening is the gray matter of the brain, it actually grows. So the amygdala grows, it increases in mass in the brain. The amygdala is the part of your brain that gives volume to your emotional responses. So in some ways, in a person who's super calm, they could have an experience and the volume might just get kicked up a little and then it goes back. But somebody who's really overstressed, they have a more emotional response to a situation than they would otherwise. So it's interesting right now, a lot of people who had a ton of stress in their lives now are taking this in as extremely stressful. And part of the reason is, and they're getting really emotional. I know a lot of my private clients who I work with have very high stress jobs, and they're like super emotional right now. And that is actually their brain, because they've been living in stress for so long. Their brain, the parts of their brain that, the emotional responses are kicking out really loud emotional responses. And the more we stress, the more those emotional responses will grow in volume. Now, some other things that happen just quickly. The hippocampus shrinks. This is the part of our brain that's responsible for keeping us here in the present moment. It helps put events into context. So what ends up happening in a very real way because of this is we end up dwelling in the past. That's usually plays out as depression. Or we project past events or current fears into the future. And that plays out as anxiety. So when you're experiencing anxiety, I want you to notice, are you projecting things into the future? And when you are dwelling in the past, notice if you're perhaps holding on or going back into old emotions, perhaps the texting the exes like we were talking about earlier. Notice what's happening in the brain, and notice that some of it, the more self-aware you become, the less owned you will feel by your emotions and your experiences. Some other things that can start to happen on a very physiological level, sleep gets disturbed. And one thing I really want to invite all of you to do, there's no reason why, at least from a time perspective, that most of us can't get 8 hours of sleep right now. If you're doing that, you probably don't need the same amount of morning caffeine you did when you were running out in life. So taking off the caffeine is one thing you can do right off the top, A, to help you sleep better, B, to start kicking that caffeine habit that can really wreak havoc on your body, and C, because it can cause a lot of anxiety to be over-caffeinated. Okay, so all of these things, when the sympathetic nervous system is kicking, it's just keeping you in this fight or flight response. Fight, flight, or freeze. All right, now I really want to ask you this, and I'd love it if you would type in an answer, and then we're going to meditate right after this. Have any of you been seeing yourself in fight, flight, or freeze? Fighting perhaps to get food or supplies, flight, hiding out in your house and disconnecting from people, freeze, being unable to process experiences and just shutting down. Anybody? And you can type in what it is that you're experiencing, or if you don't want to type it in, you can just send out little hearts or other sweetness. Helps us to stay engaged and connected. Anybody? Nobody else is fighting or flighting or freezing? Absolutely, yeah. I think I'm doing all three of them. And that's the sign, really in our practice, we need to do more of the things that we're going to do now when we do our practice. Freeze. Okay, yeah. So we're getting some of these things playing out, and we can just know, we can become self-aware that we are in the midst of a sympathetic nervous system response. And that means we need to spend more time turning up the volume on the things we do to relax our body and mind, like the breath, like meditation, like the things we're just about to do. So the last thing I want to say about this is that please don't think emotions are the enemy. Somehow in this world of, constant pharmaceutical commercials and distractions and marketing, we have been sold the reality that emotions are, bad or wrong, that we should be living all the time happy, and that nothing should ever be wrong. And that's just not true. To be a whole human being, to be an authentic human being, a compassionate human being, we need the full scales. How boring would it be to live a life only on the high notes, right? It would be extremely boring. And it would also be fake. Life is not always happy, and I would put money on the fact that when we really look at our lives, some of the most potent moments have been the ones where fear was present, where sadness was present, where grief was present. We are in the midst of a very, very potent moment. There is meaning here, there is purpose here. So when the emotions come up, don't look at them as something to escape from. Look at them as a really generous invitation. Because those emotions have really valuable wisdom and meaning in them. They have really valuable truth in them. And I know we have several artists on today, so I want to ask our artists, how important are what we could call I don't like calling them negative emotions because I don't think of them as negative, but how important are the difficult emotions or the more challenging emotions, the sadness, the fear, the anger? How important are those to the artistic process? And I would like to invite anyone else who's ever been in the scales of life, which is every single one of us. How important have the most challenging moments been to our life? Nikki says it's what unlocks the magic. Absolutely. It's what unlocks the magic in every single one of us. Oh, Leah, they birthed my art practice. Amazing, amazing artist and soul. Yeah. Often lead to epiphany. Absolutely. They completely lead to epiphany. And we talked about in our very first session how when we have fears or when we are experiencing the dystopia, which is right now, we can also look at it from the other side. That's connected to what we love most. The only reason we're sad is because we're realizing what we love. If we feel sad that we can't spend time with sorry, I just paused for some reason, but if we still feel sad that we can't spend time with the people we love and who are meaningful in our lives, it's because we love them and we're missing it. So we can connect with what it is that is at the depth of it, which is love. The other thing emotions really invite us to do, Heather, oh my gosh, I just looked down right as I read that. Heather just said it. Heather said it perfectly. They add contrast and depth to my paintings. The contrast and the depth is given by understanding how to go into the pain, into the sadness, into the fear, and to find our peace in the midst of it. And ultimately, the thing that gives life dimension is that. It gives life dimension to be able to go deep into the experience of being human. There are huge teaching moments in that experience. So stay in the practice and also stay connected to the peace, the stillness that we're talking about every day. Stay connected to that deep stillness, that deep peace that lives at the core of your being. Consciousness, awareness, your soul, whatever you want to call it. Stay connected to that peace because that is the safest place you will ever know. It's the unchanging stillness that's always here. And the more we stay anchored to that, the emotions will come, they will go, but we are the peace. We are not the ripples in the mind. We are the stillness behind it. And then the ripples, they're just the story. They're just the experience. So be open to playing the scales and have fun with it. And when people ask how you are, I really invite you to tell the truth. Pat, who's on here, one of my beloved soul sisters, she called last night and She's like, how are you? And I said, I feel really sad. Just a deep sadness. And then she said, well, I feel really sad too. And I feel scared. And it opens the door to have an authentic conversation. Again, that vulnerability is the place where real connection happens. So let's be vulnerable together and let's take it into a nidra and writing experience. So have your journal ready, and you can, the beginning of the yoga nidra is going to be calming and centering in the body. And then we are going to go through observing whatever emotions are present in the body. We're going to observe them in the mind, and then we're going to do a few things with them. And if you were here yesterday, we're also going to do some writing about them to help ground the experience. If you don't want to write, you don't have to. You can just take the whole time that we're silent and writing. You can take that time to just really look inside yourself and sit with the stillness and sit with whatever's present. Okay. So I want to start off before we begin the actual meditation with a little bit of alternate nostril breathing. For those of you who've ever done psychotherapy, you might have encountered EMDR, which is a technique in which we stimulate bilateral stimulation with the left and right hemispheres of the brain. But we can do that with the breath too. And actually, when we cross from the right to the left side of our body, we're actually helping our brain to process emotions. And this is a yogic thing, but it's also a scientific thing. We are using all these techniques to help the brain process experiences. So we'll start off just with a couple rounds of that, and then we'll move right into the yoga nidra. So before we do that, sit the spine up straight, close the eyes. Observe how you're feeling now. Noticing what the texture, the sensation of your body and mind feel like in this moment. Bring your fingertips out to the sides. Connect with the earth as if the fingertips, the hips were going down, sending down roots into the earth, really grounding down. And the next inhale, sweep the arms up, inhaling deeply. Exhale, drawing the hands down right into the heart. Connecting with the love in your heart. Inhale, lifting that love up. Exhale, sending it out to all beings. Do 2 more of these. Inhale, lifting up, drawing in whatever it is you need from the earth, from the air. Exhale, drawing it right down into the heart. Connect with the infinite ocean of love in your heart. On the inhale, lift that up. On the exhale, send it out to all beings, anyone who's suffering. Next one, inhale, drawing in anything you need for this moment of life. Exhale, drawing it into the heart. Finding the deepest prayer of love for all suffering. Deep in the depth of your heart. On the inhale, lift it up. Exhale. Send it out. Keeping the eyes closed, if those of you who don't know the alternate nostril breathing, Anuloma Viloma, bring your right hand into Vishnu Mudra, pointer and middle finger down. Gently block the right nostril with the thumb. Inhale through the left nostril. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gently hold the breath for a moment. Exhale out the right nostril, lifting the thumb. Inhale in through the whole right side of the body. Inhale deeply. Hold for a moment. Exhale out the whole left side of the body. Inhale in through the whole left side. Hold for a moment. Exhale out the whole right side. Now, as you're inhaling through the right side, draw all that up to the space between the two eyebrows, the third eye, Ajna chakra. As you exhale out the left, breathe out the whole left side of the body. Inhale, breathing in through the whole left side. Hold for a moment. Exhale out the whole right side. Inhale in the whole right side. Hold for a moment, focusing between the eyebrows. Exhale out the whole left side. And you can lower the hand down. Keep the eyes closed and notice any changes in sensation in the body or in the mind. So we take 3 deep breaths, inhaling deeply into the abdomen, up into the chest. Exhale. Inhale deeply. Exhale. Inhale again. Fill up the whole body. And then exhale. Now become aware of the feeling of the body. Take a moment to evoke a feeling of safety and well-being from inside the body. Finding an internal feeling, safety and comfort. Feeling the heart, noticing if there's an intention present for the practice. Maybe there's an emotion you'd like to work with. Maybe a prayer for yourself or someone else. Feeling back deep in the heart. Asking yourself, what do I want more than anything else in life? What is my heart's deepest desire? Whatever it is, place it in a sentence in the present tense, as if it's a fact and true For instance, I am healthy, whole, and complete, just as I am. Now bring your attention to the physical body. Start observing what physical sensations are present in the body. Notice. And see if, as you notice the body, you notice a sensation that is perhaps associated with an emotion. Perhaps in the abdomen or the shoulders. Perhaps in the chest or the throat. Now, picking up your pen for a moment or your pencil, without looking at the page, just get the page there in front of you. Take a moment now to start drawing the physical sensation. Letting your hand, your arm become an expression of that sensation. Let the pen just start moving. Noticing whatever movement the pen is making without getting in the way, just observing. Maybe fluid, maybe rigid, maybe changing, maybe a pattern. Let the pen express the physical sensation. Eyes are closed. Doesn't need to look like anything when you're done. Letting the pen move the way the sensation feels. Another 30 seconds. Exploring the emotion with movement. And letting the pen stop. Checking in again. How does the emotion feel now? How does the physical sensation feel now? Notice if you want to stay with that sensation, or maybe there's another sensation that wants exploring. Find another place in the body where sensation is tuned up. If you want, you can turn the page or use the same one, it doesn't matter. Keeping the eyes closed, the experience within. your choice. You can either draw that sensation, just as we did, or you can begin writing down words to describe the feeling. It doesn't have to sound like anything, just words as they arise, write them down. Maybe there's a temperature associated with it, texture, feeling. You may want to pause and feel into it again, and then let it keep telling its story as it feels right to you. Don't censor the words, just let them flow free. And finish up that piece. Close your eyes again if they're not already. Notice what else is present in the physical body. Feeling without thinking. Is there another place in the physical body that wants a voice? A deep listening, just as you would a friend, but you're listening to your body. We're going to combine the two. Find a place in your body, perhaps a new place, or it could be the same. And then let the pen flow and draw whatever comes out of the pen. Drawing the feeling of that place. It doesn't have to look like anything. Draw it out. What are you feeling in that part of your body? Noticing it. Letting the pen move as an expression of the physical sensation. And then pause for a moment. Notice what words may be present in this part of the body. And then write them down. Whatever words are here, just let the pen start flowing Doesn't have to sound or look like anything. Whatever words are present in this part of the body, just write them down. And then stepping back, letting the pen finish whatever you're writing. Placing one hand on your heart, your non-dominant hand, and then letting your right hand write whatever your heartbeat feels like. Listening to the heart. What words want to come out of the heart? Maybe something, maybe nothing, just feel. Take a moment to write down anything else that wants to be felt or seen or heard. And just keep the eyes closed and step back to that deep experience of peace. Stillness. Notice how there's a body with sensations, all amidst inner silence, unchanging peace. Feel back into the peace. Into the luminosity. darkness, center of your being. Time on a backdrop of timelessness. The wholeness, the fullness amidst the emptiness. Going deep, deep down into this steady center of your true nature. Welcome to abide here for as long as you'd like. This may be a moment you'd like to do a silent meditation. If you encounter something as you sit in silence, you're welcome to draw it, put the words down, and then keep dipping back into the stillness. I'm going to end the formal session now. Please just know you can stay doing this for as long as you'd like. Perhaps you just want to sit and abide in the stillness of your true nature. Please know the stillness is always here, holding you, supporting you, unchanging peace, your true nature. Thank you so much. Namaste.